So, why should people train? What are the benefits and opportunities with getting professional help with training?
One would be the physical, right? So in better shape, you feel better, more confidence, you look the part, right? There's the physical, which is sorry, the mental. So really good for overall just releasing of endorphins. You feel better about yourself, you feel good, more energy, more awake. Um, Yeah, I would say those are probably the two biggest aspects of why someone should train if you want to look better physically, get in better health, and then feel better mentally, overall clear your mind. That would be my 2 points on that.
And why should people look for professional help? Because gyms are abundant in cities and there are workouts you can do at home that you can find on YouTube. But there's something, I don't mean to be biased, but there's something special with having a personal trainer or personal trainers to guide you and correct you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one is the safety aspect. So if you're unsure of what to do, can really help clarify some movements in the gym, things that could be a little bit more dangerous or questionable, like deadlifts, squats, things like that. Um, Two is because not everybody, I don't think you really hire a trainer for the exercise point of view. Anyone could find whatever they're looking for online. That information is readily available. It's more for the motivational aspect and for knowing that you have someone waiting for you in the gym that's on your ass. So it's going to get you, you're more likely to show up. I'm not saying people won't cancel. And then you build that relationship with your trainer. And generally speaking, I know when I was doing sessions, I wanted to show up for that person. I wanted to impress them. I wanted to be my best self to show them like, yo, I'm actually I'm doing everything I can to reap the benefits of what you're bringing to the table, kind of thing.
Right, the relationship with a personal trainer is something that I only found very recently this year with you.
Yeah.
But it's very strange how that kind of immediately builds. Like I found myself after a couple of weeks really wanting to, as you said, like show up and not necessarily impress because that's a little too intimate for me, but like you want to do better than you were before. Like you know that there's someone else kind of looking at you, kind of like a parent, where you want to make sure that you're on top of your own stuff so that
100%.
they can see that too. Um, which brings me to kind of one of the most interesting questions, I guess, which is regardless of how many health benefits there are, exercise is so overlooked in society. We've had this resurgence of sleep, people are paying attention to their sleep, but even for, their New Year's resolution, like January 1st, everybody's on their game. February 15th comes around, all of those, promises they made to themselves and others, they're all gone. So how do, I guess there's many questions in this, but why do you think that is? How is exercise this kind of like low tier, low priority in people's lives?
It's becoming more and more common. However, from my personal experience, I would say there's a sort of an extreme point of view when it comes to exercise. Either you have to go 100%, crush it in the gym so you feel like you just got hit by a car, or you just don't go at all and you get lazy. And in my mind, like the 5 minute workout you did in your bedroom is better than the 60-minute workout you had planned in your head, but you never did, right?
Mm.
So I'm not saying like there's obviously like gray areas in between, but I think there's a sort of an aspect of extremism when it comes to training. Any movement is better than no movement at all. A lot of people are motivated in the moment to do it. However, motivation is a fleeting sort of feeling. Dedication is what keeps you going, right? So it's when you don't feel like doing it, when you don't feel like getting up so early, when you don't feel like lifting the heavy weights, you kind of through those building blocks of having done it before and knowing that you can and pushing yourself when you don't feel like it, you build that confidence in yourself and you kind of take yourself to new levels. Um, yeah, I think it's like I said, it's becoming more accepted. It is something that a lot of people talk about, at least in my circle, but maybe I'm a little biased. But it's something that people need to learn to just do something. It doesn't have to be the best workout of your life every single time you set foot in the gym, but move. It's pretty
Right.
much what it boils down to.
And we touched on this, and this is one of the things where, I mean, you really like it's still in my head when you told me this, but when I was asking you how you stay motivated, you said you don't believe in motivation in
Yeah.
a certain way. You believe in dedication.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main points I want to address in this podcast. Could you say more about that? Because it's such a big, like we use motivation all the time, like
Yeah.
motivational trainers, motivational speakers, or whatever. And that's kind of where the fleeting aspect comes around, whereas dedication is a lot more fixed.
Yeah, so motivation, I would say it's a beautiful feeling in the moment. You get this surge of almost adrenaline where you want to get up and conquer the world based on like, I don't know, a feeling you have, but it's just a feeling and feelings come and go, right? Not everybody
Mm.
stays angry or happy or sad all the time. So not everybody stays motivated. But then if you have that motivation and you're like, yo, I'm gonna wake up at 4 in the morning, I'm gonna kill it, diet starts this week, and then you wake up, it's cold, it's dark out, the food's not ready, and you're like, ah, man, you know? So that's where dedication kind of plays its role, where I mean, a lot of people are dedicated for different reasons, right? So I can't speak to everybody. Like you may have a different reason for doing what you do and staying in the gym or working so hard than I do. But in my opinion, it's first of all, you don't want to let the people down that are around you. You want to bring the best version of yourself to the table. So, you know, your mom, your dad, the people who raise you, the people who are close to you, they're proud of you. They respect you. They see you as the man who you strive to be. And most importantly, you do it for yourself, right? Because I don't want to look in the mirror one day and be disappointed with the man who I become or who I am. Um, you know, there's a lot of things I could do better. Nobody's perfect. It's you're always a work in progress, right? But at the end of the day, we're only given so much time as humans. Like the day we're blessed with life is the day we're faced with death one day, right? And what you do with your time in between is ultimately what shapes you as a person. And time is very precious, right? So being able to use that and create something, and by create something, I mean yourself, like create the best version of yourself possible. I think it's something pretty beautiful, right? So
Absolutely.
that's my take on dedication and why I do the things I do.
Yeah, it was so kind of enlightening to me when you put it like that because I had struggled with motivation for so long because as you said, it's a beautiful feeling and then you wake up and it's 5 and you promise yourself you're going to do 10 different things today
Yeah.
and when you actually start trying, the feeling goes away
Mm.
and so you have no really motivation to do anything and so you stop. But on the topic of exercise, one thing is that people just dislike comfort. Like a lot of people very close to me, as soon as they start, as soon as they feel the first kind of soreness, like I remember first training session I had with you, I went home and I was like, I'm never going back there again. You were cool, but I just the routines and the exercises had such a big toll on my body. And even when I'm training with you and the other trainers, it's like, dude, there's so much discomfort. It's so uncomfortable to really push yourself. And so I guess there are many questions in this, but why do people avoid discomfort so often? And how can we kind of gain strength to deal with discomfort when it comes to exercise?
Yeah, so when it comes to the physical aspect, like for sure, if it's your first time in the gym and you're just starting out, there's going to be some soreness that occurs. Generally speaking, if the trainer does his job properly, you want to mitigate that as much as possible so that they're a little sore, but they're still functional, and then you build up to it, right? Then their tolerance builds up, and there's a progressive sort of aspect to it. Um, and then when it comes to the mental sort of realm, um, pushing yourself, finding out what your limits are, like trying new things. It's not just in the gym, but overall in life, being able to test yourself, test your physicality. I think that's a beautiful thing. And it's very enlightening to see what kind of a person you are. Are you going to be able to handle it? You think everybody has an idea of who they are. And then once they're actually pushed or tested, it oftentimes falls short.
Hmm.
Like I remember when I started training jujitsu, I had an idea of who I was, and then I stepped on the mats and I got wrecked. I got destroyed. And I'm like, oh man, this is really humbling.
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of aspect in the gym. People like to be comfortable. Like they say, a comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. So you you want to be comfortable, you want to, chill, take advantage of all of life's like pleasures, but at the same time, if you get too intertwined with that, then you miss out on some of the other beautiful things that life has to offer. And one of those things is, struggle, pain, hardship that ultimately leads you down the path of becoming a better person.
One of my favorite quotes is, "Your preferred life is on the other side of the line of your comfort zone." And I've
Yep.
always thought about that, where, if I'm uncomfortable doing something, not just in the gym, but, talking to a girl or trying to go for a job or something, or even reaching out to a podcast guest, it's like, yeah, it's uncomfortable. I don't want to do it, but I need to do it. And one of the things, as you were saying, is when you start doing that in a physical sense in the gym, you may leave the gym, but the mental aspect follows you, kind of like a shadow. And you're
100%.
able to use the skills learned physically to do other things mentally, which is fascinating. Okay, so we've gotten the dedication down. We're not motivated, we're dedicated. We understand that discomfort is necessary. So I get to, let's say X-Fit, which is a personal training gym in Montreal. Shout out X-Fit. What makes a good personal trainer? What should I look out for? Is it kind of like you have to pick and choose, or are there certain things that good personal trainers do that you've seen bad personal trainers not do?
Yeah, so it's multifactorial. Some people just aren't comfortable with certain other individuals. For example, you may have walked into XFit and seen my face and been like, "Yo, fuck this guy." Like, like it just happens. Sometimes people don't gel, they don't
I
vibe.
don't mean to come clean on the podcast, but
But yeah, like it's the truth, right? So there's clients that I've worked with that just couldn't stand me, and it just that's the reality of the situation. Doesn't matter what you try and do. On the other hand, saying that's seeing as like let's say that's not an issue. The what makes a good personal trainer, one would be some at least basic knowledge and or education on, anatomy, physiology, exercise selection, things like that. Which you can gain through either just, schooling or personal experience, self-research, self-taught, all that stuff. So a lot of great trainers that aren't well educated. There's a lot of shitty trainers that are really well educated. I think education and the passion to be constantly striving for new knowledge and always trying to learn, discover, like not be too set in your ways in terms of no, it has to be like this, but be open-minded, read new articles, watch new videos, just learn as much as you can, be a sponge and forever be a student of fitness, right? Never be so cocky or arrogant that you think you know it all. And then two, it's also just learning how to be personable, how to talk to people. Like I was very nervous when I first started. I had trouble even making eye contact with certain individuals. And now I've gotten to the point where I look forward to it. It's kind of like that situation I was talking about before where you want to test yourself, you want to grow. I knew I was bad at that aspect, and now it's probably the thing I'm strongest in because I would really make an effort to try my best at it. And when I would talk to people, ask them lots of questions, figure out who they were as people, and just get to know them, right? Become their friends, but at the same time, push them and have that rapport where it's like there's a time to talk and then there's a time to work. I think ultimately what sets a good trainer apart, assuming that most of them have the same general understanding of, basic concepts of fitness, would be the social or the psychological aspect, knowing how to talk to people, how to push them, but then take your foot off the gas if you're going too hard, and just work with the person as opposed to against them.
that's so good. And I had never really been experienced with personal training or personal trainers in general before XFit, so I kind of have a very N of one point of view. But on YouTube or Instagram or whatever, you always see these videos of personal trainers, or you always hear stories of personal trainers just like shouting at their clients,
Yeah.
or like just like shouting and swearing. Do you have any comments or thoughts on those? Like, why are those trainers so popular? Like, what is the point of that? Obviously, I've never experienced that, but it seems like such a hollow, shallow thing to even partake in.
Yeah, so it comes back to the concept of motivation, I guess. Some people find that very motivating. They'll watch videos online and they'll see like those, big bodybuilders or people yelling and screaming, and some people want that. So as a trainer, you have to be kind of like the proverbial chameleon. You have to fit
Mm.
as best you can all the different roles. So if I'm training I don't know, an 80 something year old lady who's kind of quiet and she's just trying to rehab a knee, for instance, I'm going to take a different approach and I'm going to present a different version of myself than I would with the biggest gym bro of all time who's just
Yeah,
there to like lift super heavy.
yeah.
So in his case, maybe that's what he wants. He's like, "Yo, bro, just yell at me." Then I'll definitely I'll try my best to implement that. But it's not one size fits all, right? So everybody has a different sort of need. And it's your job as a trainer to sort of figure out that need and what they respond best to, and then um, like exploit that and use it to their benefit.
So I guess this is kind of more of a psychological thing, but how do you keep your clients dedicated through their fitness journey? I know there's a lot about the sociality, a lot about the you have to care a little bit about
Yeah.
them and all of that, but did you learn certain tips or tricks on what to say and what not to say to like to keep them on course?
Mhm. Yeah. So, I mean, a good one would be don't be judgmental. So I have my bad days, you have your bad days. The best in the world have their bad days. They might have a bad meal or they might miss a workout. The goal is not to belittle or humiliate or make them feel like, bad about themselves, but it's to make them understand that they're human like everybody else. And one bad cheat meal or one missed workout isn't going to make you out of shape, just like one good meal or one workout isn't going to make you in shape. So ultimately, most of my clients, 99.99% are not competitive athletes. So they can kind of chill in that happy area where, they're dedicated, they do what they need to do, but they also have, lives that they want to enjoy, and sometimes they go out and they eat. Another good one would be present to them the image that I mean, they're hiring you for a reason, right? And it's not just your knowledge, but it's for who you are as a person. You want to show them that you walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So if you show up, you're in good shape. Um, you're motivated, you're there training before they show up, or you look good, whatever it is. I know it sounds a little superficial, but it's the same concept of if you went to a dentist and his teeth were all blackened and broken, you might not trust him very much, you know?
Right.
Just like if you go to an overweight doctor and he's telling you, diet's not important, go on blood pressure medication. You want to walk the walk and talk the talk at the same time, and then people will have more confidence and believe you a little bit more. And they'll look at you as a reference point and be like, man, I respect him. I want to be like him, or I want to sort of achieve what he's been able to achieve. And so they're more likely to follow suit because you're living proof of that.
Right, right. I should mention now that XFit has like a massive board with all the numbers of what people hit, and every
Yeah.
time I look at you and Mamzi, who's another personal trainer, I get very discouraged. No, I'm joking.
Huh.
I get very dedicated to try
Yeah,
to
there
be
you
those goals.
go.
So, like, what do you have any certain principles or philosophies that guide your approach to fitness, and maybe how has that evolved over the years?
Everyone has their own journey. Mine was one of obsession. So I get very locked in and hyper focused on what I'm trying to do, whether it's, school or work or sports and I don't think that's necessarily the healthiest approach. So I used to be a bodybuilder. I used to compete. And when you're competing, you're taking everything to the extreme, your diet, your training, your lifestyle, whatever it is. And that doesn't usually work in the long run or for most people. So if that works for you, that's great because there's a lot of people who love that and they thrive off of that. And I was at one point, but as I've progressed in like, my fitness journey and in life in general, I come to realize that there's more to life than just, one aspect of it or, fitness in general. So I'm a big advocate now of just moving, sometimes I'll tell like maybe you've heard me say it to you or other clients that, XFit is great, you get a great workout, but if you're able to try other things too, do maybe one or 2 weeks at XFit, go swimming once a week, go for a run, another biking, pick up a sport like soccer. Variety is the spice of life, and you want to see what what works for you, what you like, what you don't like, and then any form of movement is good. People get into a rut sometimes. Ah, man, I missed the gym. Yeah, but you walked like 10,000 steps and then you went for a jog or something, You have to be a little bit more logical with it and see that just it's about health ultimately and keeping yourself. It's a long journey, right? It's a marathon, not a sprint. So even if you don't do it perfectly, as long as you're constantly moving forward step by step, day by day, you're gonna see progression. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
See, I know you were just saying these things to give examples, but you were saying, 1 or 2 days at XFit, maybe you pick up a sport, maybe do yoga or go for a run. And I was doing that too, but I was told, I need certain amounts of rest.
Yeah,
I'm doing
100%.
too much. And that to me was strange because I know of so many athletes, so many, not even just athletes, but so many high performers that make it a thing to exercise every single day. And now here I am, and the people I'm paying to coach me are telling me actually, rest is vital. without proper rest, you're not going to perform as well the next time. So, what role does rest and recovery play in overall fitness, and how should we kind of interweave these things into our own fitness regime?
Sure, yeah. So, I'll make a distinction between like hypertrophy and weight training,
Mm,
compared to something that's more cardiovascular, like running or biking. Um, those things like stretching, cardio, you could do them a lot more frequently than you can lifting weights, assuming they're low impact and you're not stressing out your joints too much. Um, a pretty safe overall cue that your body might give you in regards to overtraining would be, you feel more fatigued, you're getting weaker in the gym, you're regressing, you don't carry the same pumps, let's say. You're always tired, even going to your job. Your sleep quality diminishes. You might not be as hungry, or you might be overeating. You'll notice mentally you'll be very fatigued as well. You might be depressed a little bit or down in a rut. So there's a lot of signs your body will give you if you're overtraining. If you're hitting the gym 7 days a week, you're not giving your body the chance to recover. So recovery is so important, so overlooked. Like we said, there's those two extremes where people either do too much or not enough.
mm.
And when you get into that realm of like intensity and obsession, it's almost hard to take a day off sometimes, but super vital to just your overall mental and physical well-being. So I would highly recommend it. But then there's a bit of nuance when it comes to what kind of activity you're doing. So if you're doing like swimming or you're just walking 10,000 steps a day, this is something you can do without any risk of overtraining. But if you're going crazy hard in the gym, lifting weights, breaking down those muscle fibers, and you're not giving your body a chance to recover, yeah, you're gonna see some negative effects of that.
See, okay, we've mentioned this now twice, so I want to ask you, how do we find the perfect middle ground of not doing too much, but not doing too little? It seems like obviously, the story of Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold, just right. Is finding that just right for exercise something that comes with trial and error? Can we achieve that almost instantly and be as optimized as possible from day one?
Yeah, so there's so much to talk about there when it comes to program structure and just how you're gonna progress. Like when you start off, maybe a lot of volume isn't necessary or a lot of workload is not necessary. You can go maybe 3 times a week to the gym and see a few results. I'm a big fan of the concept of progressive overload, like I was talking about before, not going too hard in the gym right away
Hmm.
and giving yourself or your body rather something to work up to and build a tolerance towards. So your limit, let's say, or your tipping point where you start doing too much as opposed to just enough, it changes, it varies, right? So athletes, for instance, let's use a power lifter. He'll he'll follow a program of almost like periodization where he goes up and lifts every week. And then just before his competition, that's where he maxes out at the show. And then he'll start to progressively deload. So you'll never I mean, I'm speaking from a point of view from a competitive athlete. You'll never be at your 100% because you want to time it so that your 100% is when you need to shine the most, right?
Hmm.
But as a an everyday gym goer or somebody who's just like the, you know, mom and pop or
Average
whatever,
person, yeah.
average person, you and I, whoever, I don't think being at your peak all the time is realistic or ideal because if you
Yeah.
hit that, then it's just too hard to maintain. And then eventually there's going to be a drop off point where you can't sustain it. There's life. You're not getting paid to do it. You have other commitments. Maybe you have a family. Whereas if you kind of cruise around like 85% of your full potential, that's pretty good. And like you can maybe have an easier time to maintain that than you would trying to always be at your very, very best all the time.
Yeah, it's brilliant because that's one thing about me, which was before going to XFit, I was spending, I was giving 100% in the gym every single time and trying to do the most. And then at XFit, when you try that, it's like it's not you can't maintain that. You can't always give that 100%. Not in the sense of mentally, but just physically. There are some times where, not every week you're hitting PRs type of
Exactly.
thing. And that's one thing that you guys taught me, which is, the numbers will come, but they're going to come eventually. it's not every single week you have to do 50, 100 pounds more. It's like it's not realistic. You have to,
Exactly.
be smart with it. And this, I mean, this is not an ad for XFit or any other personal training, although it might be. But it's one of those things where finding that middle ground, the just right, not too hot, not too cold, just right ground is one of the perks that comes with having a personal trainer, of going to personal training, which is you have someone else or other people there to help guide you, to help you figure out what that just right is, and to give you their knowledge, their wisdom, their experience in relation to you, because
Yeah.
my body is different to other clients you have, and so making sure that you're you have someone else paying attention to you as well is vital. So when it comes to diet, and diet and nutrition is as essential as possible. I only learned this very recently, but I guess very basic question: how does diet influence fitness and exercise?
Diet is the fuel to your body, right? So it's the probably the most challenging, but the most important aspect of um, I would say fitness because the hour you spend in a gym 5, 6 days a week, that's great,
Mhm.
but it's what you do with the other 23 hours throughout the day that really count, right? So if you're eating garbage, you're going to McDonald's, you're missing meals, you're eating carb heavy meals with no protein, whatever it may be, sugary snacks, that's going to influence how you feel physically, how you perform in the gym, and as well, it's going to, impact your mental well-being, also because I mean, you are what you eat, right? So if you just don't feel well, you're eating fatty, sugary, greasy foods, you're gonna wake up feeling bad. You're not gonna perform as well in the gym. You're gonna be all like, ugh, like not feel great about yourself. So diet is such an important role and or such an important aspect of training. And I mean, so many people have different views on nutrition. Some people are vegan, some people are carnivore, some people are keto, some people whatever. It doesn't matter. Like you can go into the science behind all of those. There's different research supporting and denying different ones, but I think ultimately just finding something that works for you and following a structured plan of calories in, calories out, making sure you're not overeating, making sure you're not undereating, supplying your body with enough protein to rebuild muscle, and then enough carbs and fat to maintain certain energy levels, as well as a bit of fruits and veggies every meal to hit your micros, your micronutrients. You're pretty much 99% of the way there. So, but yeah, it's ultimately it's one of the most impactful aspects of training in general.
So, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything, but there is no like best diet for
Um,
in
I mean, it
general.
depends who you talk to, right? So I don't claim to be a leading expert in the field of nutrition or a scientist. Um, There's so many different. So I used to be vegan. I've tried the carnivore diet. I've done keto for a while. I've done the traditional bodybuilder diet. They all had their pros and cons. They all worked well and badly in different ways.
So, sorry to interrupt. What's the traditional bodybuilder diet?
Just like 5, 6 meals a day, chicken, rice, broccoli, kind of stuff
I
like
see.
that. Like really trying
Okay.
to pack on size. Um, there's pros and cons to all of them. And I think ultimately what you have to do is find what works for you, based on the research that you do as an individual, and then see how your body responds, right? So, but like I said, the founding principles are always going to be calories in, calories out. Your body's a closed system. You can't outwork thermodynamics. So if you're eating too much compared to what you're burning, you're going to put on weight. If you're eating too little compared to what you're burning, you're going to lose weight. And if you're kind of in the middle, you'll maintain. That's a global concept, a universal concept. You want to hit your micronutrients, right? So your vitamins, minerals, and water, so that you can get through fruits and vegetables. So I'm a big advocate of getting a little bit of those every meal or as often as you can throughout the day. Variety of both, not always the same thing. And then having your proteins. So regardless of what that is, if you're vegan, it's tofu, lentils, whatever. If you're carnivore, meat, chicken, eggs, and then a little bit of healthy carbs and healthy fats, and then that's gonna work for almost 100% of the population if you do it properly.
Sure. Um, Speaking still on diet, because again, as you so brilliantly put, what you do in the gym for 1 hour doesn't have as much of an effect as what you do the other 23 hours. How do you feel about sugar? Because it feels like there's this, I'll ask about alcohol afterwards, but it feels like there's this kind of, not resurgence, but this inability to even address, inability to make eye contact with the problem of sugar. We see it everywhere. It's baked into everything, from salty chips, which have sugar, to even like the breakfast cereals that we have, to so many, the condiments and sauces we have. How does sugar affect exercise? And should we be cutting it out, or is there a way to have your cake and eat it too?
Yeah, so I mean, for the majority of people, you'd want to be take a sort of a stance of mostly try and eliminate as much as you can, but we're also humans, right? We like sugar, we like salt, we like fat. Um, I think there has to be a distinction made between what kinds of sugar. So, for instance, I mean, when you break down any carbohydrate in your body, it ultimately gets broken down into glucose, right? So sugar. It's just a type of sugar I think you're referring to as more the cheap, white, quick digesting sugar, right? Like table sugar or whatever it is. So that's the problem with that is there's no fiber, there's nothing else that comes with it. So it just it gets absorbed very quickly. It spikes your insulin, your blood sugar. You can get that crash afterwards. You get a big surge of energy, and then you're like you're lethargic. So sugar, in and of itself, inherently, it's not bad because we need sugar to survive, right? Glucose, that's what fuels our body. When you eat bread, when you eat pasta, when you eat sweet potato, when you eat like beans, whatever it is, you're going to be getting ultimately sugar from those carbohydrates once they've been broken down. But along with that comes the fiber, the fat, the protein, the vitamins, the minerals, all those other things that are beneficial to the body. So I would say sugar in and of itself is not bad, but when you take that refined, processed, junky sugar, that's when the problem comes in. And the same could be said about fat, right? Like fat, if you eat an avocado, it's not necessarily bad for you. It's one of the healthiest things you can eat. But then if you have a burger at McDonald's, which is loaded with fat, it's been deep fried or whatever, that's full of fat, but it's not the same quality of fat, right? So there has to be a distinction made between what kind of fat, what kind of sugar or carbs, what kind of protein, what kind of anything we're talking about.
What about alcohol? One thing that I learned even before, really getting into exercise is that if I have alcohol the same day as I workout is moot. Like it's useless. It's gone. Like those gains that you made potentially are erased. I also learned from Matt Walker's book, Why We Sleep, um, alcohol really affects your performance. So reduces your performance by, I think it was 30%. Um,
Yeah.
are we able to have a relationship with alcohol while also paying attention to fitness?
Yeah, so alcohol is like, I mean, it's for all intents and purposes, it's a poison. So what it's doing to your body is not necessarily the most beneficial. I would limit it as much as possible. So I would put it in the same category as drugs, to be honest. It's just more socially acceptable because you can buy it at a bar or whatever it is, whereas drugs you can't generally. So I would put it within that realm, that category of drug, or it has similar effects on the body, right? It is high in calories, so I think for every gram of alcohol, you're getting about 7 grams of or 7 calories rather, sorry. Um, so it does, if you consume a lot of it, it does add gradually to your caloric expenditure. But yeah, what you were saying about sleep and training, if you're gonna consume it, which a lot of people they live for that, they love drinking alcohol. I'd be just more intelligent about when you do it. For instance, like I'm not gonna drink a cup of coffee right before I go to bed because it's gonna keep me up. So I'm not gonna drink a glass of alcohol and get plastered right before I hit the gym.
Mm,
So I would save it for specific instances and limit my consumption of it. So if you want to do it once a week, once every other week, and I'm not talking like drink a whole bottle of vodka, I share a glass of wine with some friends or whatever. Yeah, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Everything in moderation is good or is tolerable. But it's when people start to abuse it or they can't live without it. That's when the problem sort of sets in. So I don't think most people should drink it, but like who am I to judge? Some people love it, so just be smart about when you consume it and how you
sure.
consume
And on the topic of sleep, when it comes to fitness and just feeling good about yourself, I guess I was always told, that the kind of grind culture of sleep 3 hours a day, sleep at your desk, grind never stops type of thing. But then you hit the gym and you start kind of experiencing, oh, no, 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 I need to sleep, I need to recover, I need to rest. Do you have any thought, like, do you recommend, I guess is a stupid question, but do you recommend certain amounts of sleep to your clients, or how do they respond to that?
Yeah. I guess it's also not just the quantity, but the quality, right? So there's different kinds of sleep. There's REM sleep. There's, light sleep. So if you want to get good quality REM sleep, you don't just want to be like half awake, like when you pass out on the sofa in front of a movie. You want to actually take the time to get the best quality sleep you can, and it is super important to your well-being. I promise you, no matter how dedicated or motivated or whatever else you are, if you don't get a good night's sleep, if you sleep for 3 hours and it's a bad sleep, and then you have like a full 12, 14-hour day ahead of you, it's gonna suck. So you're gonna want that sleep as an insurance policy to make sure you're performing well. You need it because you're not gonna perform as well in the gym. You're not gonna perform as well at work or your everyday life or whatever it is. So it's a really vital and crucial aspect to being the best version of yourself. When it comes to sleep, there's different criteria I'll recommend. For example, uh, I mean, magnesium is a good one you can take before bed, for example, as a supplement. Making sure the room is nice and cold, so not really too sure on what the ideal temperature is, but generally speaking, colder is better than too hot. Um, and yeah, no cell phones, maybe let's say an hour before bed, no, or TV or screens rather, an hour before bed. Try and turn everything off so you have no social media or outside distractions that are waking you up. And yeah, just focus on getting a nice, so yeah, you could even go as far as I know some people that like to drink a nice chamomile tea before they go to bed. It helps kind of mellow them out, put them to sleep. Um, so yeah, just making a small effort. It doesn't have to be like a monumental effort, but something small just to make sure you stack the odds in your favor when you go to bed and you get a good quality sleep. And then I would say in terms of length, 6 to 8 hours is pretty decent. I usually get about six, 5 or 6. I should probably sleep more, but 7 or 8 is good. And again, it's the quality as well. So if you're getting a full 8, but it's bad quality, I'd rather you get 6, but a higher quality of sleep.
Well, one of the biggest, most problematic areas of staying consistent is mental health. And we're
Yeah.
seeing this kind of, I don't want to call it an epidemic because ever since COVID, that word is overused. It's like we have a TikTok epidemic. It's like, okay, we need to relax on that word. But it does seem like a lot of people are suffering from some kind of, let's call it mental health complication, whether it's tons of anxiety or real depression or even low confidence and self-esteem. Something about their mental health is just, not to sound abrasive, but just not right, not there, not 100%. Do you have any thoughts on how exercise and being consistent in the gym can impact mental health? And if you have a story on, overcoming some mental health tragedy,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Um, I mean, for one, just to touch on mental health as a whole, we're in a society where we're more connected than ever before through social media, our phones, our laptops, our computers, but we're more lonely than ever before. And I think that's because we've done such a good job of making it so that we don't actually have to see, like, I mean, case in point, right now, we're not even sitting down next to each other. We're doing a podcast via Zoom. So it's society's done a really great job of letting us connect with each other, throwing texts, phone calls, video calls, but we're not actually in the same room or with somebody else. So we've gotten really comfortable and complacent with being alone and getting a sense of feeling like we're actually connecting when we're not really. And I think that plays a big role in mental health, right? Also, you open your phone, the first thing you see is, you know, the ideal life, people going on cruises or vacations or eating the best foods or training in the perfect circumstances with the best bodies and like it's depressing because then you look at yourself and you're like, man, I'm not there. Like, what am I? It's hard to deal with. So I think that training is a huge factor when it comes to that because I know for myself personally, and maybe you could attest to this too. It just there's a surge of you feel good. There's like endorphins that are
Yeah.
released after a good workout.
Oh,
You
yeah.
feel good about yourself. You walk out the gym feeling like the man or the woman or whoever it is. You you accomplished something that's hard, that's difficult, but you put your mind to it, you grind it, and you made it happen. And then it's small victories. It's like building a house, right? You're laying block by block. You make the foundation, and then you build off of that. It's the same thing in the gym. You're building those habits, and you're turning yourself into the person you want to be. and that builds confidence, that builds, a better peace of mind, happiness, all those kind of things. It's not the pill that's going to solve everybody's mental health issues, but it's something that's going to it plays its role. And like if you wanted like a story, let's say, I mean, the most obvious one I could think of is when I was 25, I lost my mother to cancer. She passed away, and that was a hard, experience to live through. But I know that the gym was something that I enjoyed going to. It helped me overcome it. I had great people in my life too that I turned to, but like family. But the gym, I don't know what I would have done without the gym. It was really like something that it was an escape. It let me let out frustration, and I could feel good about myself and just forget about everything for an hour and just kill a workout. So, it's just about using, and this is a really important concept, is using your pain or your losses in life, your failures to motivate you to do better and to push yourself, right? I mean, I couldn't have controlled what happened in life, but it's
Mhm.
the rain falls on the just and the unjust alike, right? Everybody eventually is faced with problems, not like nobody lives a perfect life, but it's how you deal with those problems that ultimately shape you as a person, as an individual. And knowing that it's going to happen eventually to everyone, something bad is going to occur, and just making sure you're strong enough mentally to use that to your advantage as opposed to letting it consume you and destroy you.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Yeah, no problem.
It's a great answer. One thing that I've realized, I realized this before, but it kind of was solidified in this podcast. Um, Exercise just has so many roots and links into so many healthy aspects of yourself. Like as soon as you start, it doesn't happen with sleep, it doesn't happen with eating, but as soon as you start, or eating right, I should say, but as soon as you start training, you start caring about the way you eat, you start caring about what you consume, you start looking at all of the different things that you're doing, like consuming sugar or alcohol, or, if you're taking medications on the side, and seeing how those things affect you in the gym. And it's this kind of like very explicit, like a realization that you have, which is, oh, I had this too, which is like there was one week where I was going out a lot, drinking a lot, whatever. I came to XFit. I wasn't there. The next week, obviously, cut all of those things out. I was there. I was able to do so much more. I was able to train more, and that felt so much better. And I immediately knew what those problems were, because that gym was. You said it was an escape, and I didn't want to interrupt. I would say it's a safe space for you to
Yeah,
learn more about yourself,
yeah,
for you to really kind of realize, "Oh, okay, these are my kind of different problems in society and or in my life, and here's how I want to deal with them." And I remember, I mean, not to get too personal, but I even remember when I was cheated on, and I was using that pain and that anger to fuel myself at XFit. I remember I was training with you and I was telling you, and it was just like, obviously there's the problems with the emotional and the psychological, but the physical aspect, you were just able to take all of the anger and the frustration and literally work it out of your body. So another question, this is a horrible segue, but one thing that I found as a kind of noob in this arena is like caring about how much you progress, caring about all these gains. And it doesn't happen in 3 months. So for people that are expecting this, how do you deal with these expectations of, oh, I'm not 170 pounds like Kamaru Usman, you know, ripped like
yeah.
him?
Yeah, he is in shape, that guy. I mean, it's your job as a trainer to set realistic goals and expectations for the client. So I had someone come to me the other day and he was like, "Oh, I weigh, I don't know, 77 kilos and I want to go up to 85 in 2 years." And I'm like, that's pretty realistic. Like that's a long time frame. So okay, that's cool. But if you had said 3 months, I might have, whoa, that's like that's a lot of weight you want to put on of pure muscle in that amount of time. So it's sitting down with them, doing a little orientation, talking about and listening to the client, working with them, right? So many people I see that are just like, okay, we'll get you big, we'll get you cut, we'll get you in shape, whatever. You
Hmm.
really want to take the time to sit down and write it out, long-term goals, short-term goals, and then it's really easy to get lost in the progression after like a year, 2 years, and look back and be like, man, I haven't done anything, which is why it's beneficial for some people to track their progress, and then that way they can look back. Oh yeah, you didn't do anything. Well, look at what you were lifting before. Look at, this, look at that, look at, and then you can see you have a metric to compare yourself to pre and post. And you're like, wow, I actually did. Like I didn't even realize. So I think number one is just, experience as a trainer, sitting down, making sure they have realistic goals, set realistic time frames, and then work with the client to come up with those long-term and short-term goals, and then tracking everything to make sure that they know. And it's another thing of it helps you stay dedicated and to an extent motivated in the moment when you see it. Wow, I've actually been consistent. I did come like 5 days a week for the last 3 months, and I improved here, 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 and here, and those kind of things add up to more than you would think they'd be worth. And yeah.
Are there any certain kind of fitness trends or stuff that, or like innovations that you follow that are hot right now?
In what sense would you mean like techniques or program design or things like that?
Yeah, I mean all of the above. Like I've heard this resurgence of calisthenics, for
Oh,
example,
yeah. Yeah.
and so it's like everybody cares about bench, what do you
Yeah.
what do you lift, bro? How much
Yeah,
do you
how much you
lift?
bet, bro? Yeah. I mean, again, it's kind of like diet. It's not one size fits all.
Mhm.
Calisthenics are cool. Some of the movements are pretty tough on the joints, depending on what you're trying to do, like a muscle up or other movements might like trying to get like an 85-year-old woman to trying to hit her 1 MR on the bench might not be a great idea. Maybe her bones aren't strong enough. So it's not a one size fits all, but I think a little bit of variety goes a long way. So I don't always feel like lifting heavy. I don't always feel like doing calisthenics. I don't always feel like running. I don't, but like I said before, variety is the spice of life. So as long as I'm moving, I'm getting that exercise, that stimulus on my body, I'm pretty satisfied. So some days I'll walk in and I'll do more body weight movements. Some days I'll walk in and I'll do more heavy lifting. But I don't think we should put too much of an emphasis on one type of training because ultimately the body um it doesn't recognize the weight you're lifting. Like it's not like, oh, that's 35 pounds. It just, okay, maybe it's a bit heavier today. And it doesn't recognize the style of training that you're doing.
Mhm.
It's more, wow, there's a demand being put onto me, and I have to adapt and adjust to be able to better accommodate this new requirement on my body. So that's another reason why it's important to vary your style, your technique of training. Go for different things, unless you're like an athlete focusing on one specific thing. But for most people, a variety of different exercises, movements in all realms of different types of exercise are, generally speaking, if they're done safely and properly, should be good for most people.
Do you incorporate technology in any capacity into your fitness routine? Like, for example, I know a lot of people use Inside Tracker to track certain things, or they use their Apple Watch or something, or an Aura Ring or a Whoop Band or something. I know I sequenced my genome, but I haven't really figured out how to use that data to influence my training and such. Are there certain technologies that people should invest in or could invest in to help them on their fitness journey?
Yeah, I mean, like there's certain things that are not horrible to invest in. For example, like a heart rate monitor that connects to your phone to see if what zone you're in. I know some people at the gym like to use that, and it's a cool piece of technology. Um, the Aura Ring or whatever it's called is good too for sleep. That's a big one. I like to use my Fitness Pal just to track my food, just so I know that I'm eating within the same amount of calories per day. It's like a rough estimate. I don't like it's not my Bible. I'm not religious with it, but I'll do it to the best of my abilities most days. Um, I ultimately wouldn't rely too heavily on technology. I feel like it's a crutch that a lot of people tend to rely on, and I've seen them, it's almost like they look cool, right? They get the watch and the ring and the this and the that, and I'm like, yeah, but your training is shit. So like focus on the fundamentals, the basics, and that will come after. It's kind of the same concept of supplementation. Everybody's like, yeah, what should I take as supplements? What protein do you recommend? Dude, you're hitting the gym like 2 days a week and you're there for like 45 minutes talking with your buddy. Focus on the actual, like the important stuff. Like it doesn't matter how much water you're drinking right now, or like if you're an ounce over or not. Hit the gym 5, 6 days a week, rush your workouts, make sure your sleep is on point, make sure your diet's on point, and then we can talk about those little minutia details that will come up later as you hit those plateaus and you need that just a little extra to get you over the hump. But technology has its place, like I said, the step tracker, those things are good, but it's not something I incorporate too heavily in my or I rely too heavily on on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, I honestly thought the answer was going to be different, but it does, like, you made me aware that people do rely on technology and kind of focus on that rather than the workout when it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
Uh, would your answer change if like a certain piece of tech came out? Like, are there certain things where in your day-to-day life or day-to-day job, day-to-day fitness journey, you see certain areas where like, oh, I wonder if, some kind of application or some kind of technology could really enhance this area and make it better.
Yeah. I definitely my opinion is never static. It's always dynamic. Like I said, I like to learn. I like to be open-minded, so could definitely change one day. One caveat I will mention is that if somebody's really meticulous and they love to track everything and they have like a an interactive application where, for example, you and we have a program together. I update the program. You can go in and look at it, and then I update it while you're looking at it. That's cool. That's fine. That if that's what you like. Also, somebody that doesn't have a lot of time to make it to the gym. I know some people that I know it sounds weird, but like they bought like a Dance Revolution little pad and they were dancing in their house, and it's not. It's a form of movement. Half an hour later, they're burning calories. They check their watch. They're like, damn, I burned like 500 calories. That's good. So those kind of things, by all means, yeah, super helpful if you're a mom of two and you can't make it to the gym because you're cooking dinner and you just want to get a workout in or whatever the case may be. It has its place. And, technology is always advancing. And if it gets to a point where it creates something new and beneficial, then yeah, by all means, I'd be super open-minded to it and I would use it as often as possible.
What about martial arts? You said, we always talk about MMA and such, but
Yeah.
you are what belt are you in
Well,
jiu-jitsu?
blue belt. I was blue belt when I was doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. How did you like what is practicing martial arts like, or rather, how has that influenced your fitness journey? And even I guess we talked about it before, but your respect for other people.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said before, it's very humbling. So you learn really quickly what kind of person you are, how quickly you crack under pressure, how much you can take of it, how tough you think you are, and there's always a bigger fish in the sea, right? So it's a really humbling experience, and some people love it, and they're like, "Man, I need to learn this," and then some people hate it, and they're like, "Oh, this is terrible. I don't want to do this again," right? So martial arts is pretty beneficial in a lot of ways. I would say, besides the obvious of learning how to defend yourself, and you know, there's a huge mental aspect there of just overall confidence. Like when you walk down the street, or confidence of self. Um, as the years go by, as the trainings get harder, as you progress, and you can see yourself progressing, and who you're becoming as a person. I think it's really beneficial, especially to young men and kids, women as well, young girls, to learn those kind of things, martial arts, just to learn how to defend themselves and how to. It's not just about like physicality either. It's about taking on new challenges, being confident in yourself, and being able to face those obstacles head on. In life, if you're starting a business, if you're, at work and things go rough, or in a relationship, just weathering the storm and staying calm and knowing who you are as an individual and being able to have good mental clarity and peace of mind in your head whenever you go through hardship in life. And I think martial arts is a great one of the best ways to build that.
If you could go back to your younger self, maybe I don't know when you started training, 20 maybe, maybe earlier, what advice would you give him? Were there certain mistakes that you made early on that really set you back, or that people always make that you would say, or like
Mhm.
a lot of people, especially Gen Z and Gen Alpha, would really benefit from going to the gym. But getting them to the gym and training effectively or properly are two different things. So, what advice can you give to someone who's interested in going but kind of hesitant because they don't know exactly where to go and what to do?
Yeah. So I mean, for myself personally, I mean, my mistakes were my mistakes. They were my own to make, and they shaped the person who I was, or who I am. So I don't regret anything. Nothing comes to mind that I did that was horribly wrong. But I think ultimately everyone makes mistakes, and whether it's your fitness journey or your life in general. So they shape you as a person, and hopefully you learn from them and you do better next time. So I don't regret anything or would change anything. For people that are new to the gym, I would say the best thing to do is just start. So nothing's going to be perfect to begin with. My training's not perfect. Your training's not perfect, despite working with a coach. There's always things we can do better. But in, striving and searching and being obsessed for perfection, we often miss out on, just being able to to get in better shape and do like just perform well. It doesn't have to be perfect for you to be able to do it. So I mean, there's obviously there's a caveat there of don't hurt yourself in the gym. Don't try and do like a 1 MR squat on your first day or something, but just start, just move, just do something. Everyone has access to YouTube or things like that. And if you're really unsure, go like you did, find a personal trainer, someone to help you, build a little program. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great too. But ultimately just take the first step, right? Like nothing's gonna change unless you do. So like just make it happen and set foot in the gym and then you go from there.
Yeah, nothing changes if nothing changes. I know we got
Yeah.
to wrap up, but just a couple more things. Um, one of the biggest problems I find that especially young people have is actually going to the gym, not in the sense of, not in the mental or physical sense, but in the social sense. They
Mm.
find like the sociality of seeing everybody else, and like they feel that everybody's looking at them, even though people probably aren't. They feel like if they're going and using certain machines that they're not familiar with, and they're doing the exercises incorrectly, that people are gonna like laugh at them or something, or when they're doing the free weights or whatever, if they're not lifting as much as the next person over, or like, I know this is bad, but like if a girl is lifting more than you as a guy, you feel bad and stuff, which is a reality, unfortunately.
Yeah.
How should someone deal with this? Because it's like you're going there for a reason, but somehow the social aspect, the sociality is a hindrance rather than a benefit.
Yeah. And it can be a very intimidating place. Like even me myself, I prefer not to necessarily go to the standard, like gyms now because it looks almost like a beauty pageant rather than an actual,
Right. Right.
gym. I mean that's fine. Like you do you. Like I no judgment. I like to stay in my own lane, kind of keep my blinders on. I just ask myself like, are these people going to be there when I'm on my deathbed? Like who cares like what they think of me, right? Like I don't really care if they're lifting more than me or they're lifting less than me or if they're a man or a woman or whatever. So like I kind of just developed the mindset of staying in my own lane and I'm there to get a job done and regardless of if there's 50 people or two people, I'm gonna do it either way. But for younger people, I mean, I guess I can understand why it's so stressful or frustrating. It was the same with me when I was younger. I cared what people thought. And I mean,
You just don't know.
yeah, it's not that I don't know, but eventually you're gonna have to come over that hurdle, right? Like you said, nothing changes if nothing changes. So are you really gonna let that hold you back? Like if it's really that tough, go to the gym at a time when nobody's there, right? Try going later at night if you have the opportunity, or find a private gym like X-Fit, for example, that there's not gonna be like 50, 60 people in there at once. The max is maybe like two or three. Go train outside, find a calisthenics park, work out in your house, buy a few dumbbells. If it's really that big of a hindrance, then maybe start off in a different setting and then work your way up to it. Make it a challenge for you, make it a test. That's something you can overcome eventually. But if you need that little build up to it, then by all means, get creative and figure out a way to. That's what I did when I started. I lifted in my house. I couldn't afford a gym membership. So, you just build up to it and eventually you get to that point.
Why have gyms turned into a beauty pageant? That seems like a very recent thing, and it's like
Yeah.
they all go there. I was seeing, I forgot where I read this, but like people go to the gym to hit on girls rather than to train.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't understand. This is not a bar or anything. You're going
Yeah.
there to, like get better every week, and somehow the point has become like let's wear certain types of clothing or let's try to get numbers and stuff. What has
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, it's a little sad. I mean, like I guess the majority of people you see at the gym are like, on the younger side. And so they have a different mindset. A lot of people now, I don't know if you noticed, but they're pulling out their cameras and they're filming stuff.
Right. What
Uh
is this? I don't
yeah,
understand.
they're I mean like we said before, social media, right? So it's you want to portray a certain image of yourself, you want a certain demographic to follow you, and be recognized by a certain social group of people. So I think there's more pressure on people than ever before because we live in an age of technology. Everything's recorded, everything's online. That if you don't feel like you're living up to the image you're presenting, that you're not who you say you are. And
Mm.
when you're in a gym, like if you think you're the big shot and you're not hitting on girls, or like if you're not the hottest girl in the room filming yourself doing squats or whatever, you're not living up to that expectation. But I don't know, it's a new wave of fitness, I guess. Well, I wouldn't even call it fitness, but a new wave of people that have entered the gym sort of lifestyle. And it's not my thing, but if they're getting their workout done, then whatever, man. Let them do their thing.
Yeah, no, it's just I know this is a conversation about personal training and overall self-improvement, but like delete social media.
Yeah.
It'll do you wonders.
Oh yeah.
Um, a couple last questions before we go, and these might be the most important, but like who is your favorite MMA fighter?
No, this is totally the most important question. Um, oh man, that's a tough one because there's so many good ones. You know what, man? He's not my favorite MMA fighter, but the one I respect the most would probably be someone like um Habib or Islam, just because their dedication is just and their faith, their commitment, their overall how they live their life. It's such a life of sacrifice and discipline, and it's something far beyond my mental capacity, my realm of dedication or lifestyle that I could do. It's far beyond most people's that they would be able to achieve. But it's just such a powerful thing when you see how they live together, how they train together, how hard they work. It's a beautiful thing, really. And like you only see them in the cage for 5, 10 minutes, but when you actually take the time to look up videos and things like that on how they train day to day, how they live their lives and how their philosophies, their mentalities, sometimes you see videos of them speaking and explaining it. It's just I can't even comprehend it. They're such crazy athletes. It's almost like Kobe Bryant, when you would hear him talk and like how he would wake up every day, the type of mindset he brought to the table, the hunger, the dedication, the dissatisfaction for how whatever he did, he knew he could do more, and I respect that. It's crazy. Uh, it's like the quote that says, "Obsession is the word lazy people use to describe dedication." So
Mm.
to us, they're obsessed, but to them, it's just they're dedicated, they're grinding, and they know what they want, and they're going after it. And I love that. I respect that. So not maybe my favorite, but my most respected would be them.
See, it's interesting that you said Habib and Islam because I was saying one of my favorite MMA fighters is actually Connor, even though he gets
Yeah,
so much shit now. But Connor between like 2014 and 2016, let's be
yeah,
honest, that's
yeah,
who we all think about when we refer to him. But his, not quote, but he's like, I'll be satisfied when I've lost my mind, something
yeah,
like that. And it's like, whenever I feel like I'm doing too much or I feel overworked or something, it's just like, yeah, but I'm not doing this just for me. Like, there's an audience, there's a community, there's also my kids, my family, and everything.
yeah,
And it's like, he really did lose his mind. Like, everything he said, Mystic Max strikes again. Like,
yeah.
everything he said came true.
Yeah. He's a cool dude. He's one of my favorites, but I just, when he got rich, he kind of fell off and like
Oh,
he's
yeah.
not bringing that same level of, and he's done some stuff, so I wouldn't say I respect him as much as some of the other ones,
Mhm.
but he's definitely like, he's an idol of mine. Like I see what he's been. He used to be a plumber in Ireland, and he just built
Right.
himself up like crazy. His backstory is incredible, right? So it's that of the American dream and like building yourself up from nothing to something. So I respect him too. He's also like right up there.
Right. Last question, I guess, but who is taking or keeping the belt, Ilya or Max?
I'm gonna go with Max, man.
He's gonna take it back?
I think so.
Shit, okay.
He's good,
Well,
man.
j just for the podcast, I'll say Ilya, and then we'll see what
Okay,
happens.
okay.
We'll
I
see
mean,
what
maybe
happens.
who knows? Like I don't know.
There we go. Well, Rudy, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
man.
man. Thanks for having me on.